broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hello and welcome to a brand new UFC AfterBuzz TV. My name is Daria Berenato and I'm here with my lovely co-host, as always, Mr. George Hermoza and Mr. Jay Tan. Hi,
hello, lady.
Hello, ladies.
Hello, ladies.
Oh, you can say it and I can't say it?
Actually, yeah, that's how it works.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, guys, so we're here talking about an epic event in UFC history, UFC 180, Werdum versus Hunt. It was supposed to be Velasquez versus Werdum, but last-minute injury changed that. But it was the first UFC ever to be in Mexico City, Mexico. The first one ever in Mexico as well. Mm-hmm. That was exciting. What did you guys think of the Mexican fans?
The fans themselves, I think they're really happy, obviously, to finally have a UFC event and presence in Mexico. This is really a big step in general. This pay-per-view was teamed up with the Ultimate Fighter Latin America series that ran on Fight Pass. It was Team Mexico versus Team Latin America. Cain Velasquez was coaching Team Mexico, and Fabricio Werdum, obviously, the rest of Latin America. And so this was the culmination. You know, this is the icing on the cake, as it were, to that whole series season. Not the main event that Cain Velasquez fans wanted. He unfortunately had to withdraw just about a month ago, I think, from injury. But you know, we got in just as exciting a fighter, Mark Hunt, kind of a cult hero in the MMA world. And I think the event itself is really great. First step, big splash into that market. I'm looking at the card here, and you know, of my notes of the main card. We didn't have anything go to round 3, in fact.
No.
Very exciting matches on the main card. The undercard was made up of some pretty decent matches as well. A few of them went to decision, but you know, generally speaking, were quite competitive. We had a nice women's match. We had some gore on the undercard here.
Yes, we did. Some
blood and guts. And the top two matches in the prelims were finals of the Ultimate Fighter Mexico versus Latin America series.
Right.
So we've got 2 new official UFC fighters from Latin America. Excuse me, I should...
Yair Rodriguez?
Yair Rodriguez and Alejandro Perez. I would have to double check. Let's see. Alejandro Perez, I believe he was with Cain team, so that would indicate him as Team Mexico.
Right.
And Yair Rodriguez, I believe he was on Cain's team as well. So 2 new fighters officially in the UFC, and they are Mexican.
Yes.
So we've got 2 new stars for the whole country to rally around.
Yeah, I mean, Yair Rodriguez got fight of the night, right? He got
It was Henry Quinonez versus Guido Canetti.
Which was another fantastic one, actually on the Fight Pass prelims.
Right. Still the Ultimate Fighter contestants.
Yeah. We had several matches here where guys from tough Latin America debuted against each other.
Right.
Let's see here. I believe I'd have to double check my notes, but Gabriel Benitez versus Humberto Brown. They may have been Ultimate Fighter guys. I'd have to double check that. I'm honestly not quite sure about that.
I mean, I think it was a pretty great show as well. Especially every few years, UFC kind of dabbles with going to somewhere for the first time, trying it out. I know a few years ago he went to Abu Dhabi, was headlined by Anderson Silva versus Damian Maia, and because he wasn't too thrilled with Silva's performance, he was pissed. Dana White was furious at Silva. He thought Silva was embarrassing. He was like, "I'm trying to create a new market here in Abu Dhabi. How would you fight like that?" Like
Silva was clowning Damian throughout a lot of that match. It was 5 rounds, right? Went all the way.
Yeah. But now just kind of fast forward till last night, going into Mexico for the first time, definitely, it's always that risk factor of, oh, is it going to be a good card? Is it not going to be a good card or good fights? I mean, thankfully, there was interest. I mean, the whole 21,000 arena, 21,000 people seat arena sold out in only 8 hours.
Right.
So these Mexicans, they're fight happy. They want to see UFC. They've been waiting for this.
We've seen Mexican fighters over the past how many years on The Ultimate Fighter, and they always have so much heart, and they're always some of the most passionate fighters we've ever seen.
Yeah.
So bringing the UFC to Mexico for the first time seemed like a no-brainer to me. I always thought it was going to be, one of the best crowds we could draw. We've seen over recent years, Ireland, Sweden are two of many.
Canada, when they first went there.
Canada's a great example. When George St. Pierre fights in Canada, it's probably like the biggest, most ambitious crowd we've seen in the UFC. And Brazil as well, of course.
Yeah.
But I really had high hopes for Mexico, and it didn't let me down. I thought it was a great crowd. Like George said, it pulled 21,000 people, sold out in just 8 hours.
Yeah.
We got all main card finishes. I mean, what more could we ask for? And then we had Kelvin Gastelum, who's obviously an up-and-comer. He won the Ultimate Fighter 17 against Uriah Hall. That season was Uriah Hall's season. He was dominating, sending everyone to the hospital.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Kelvin Gastelum, who was Chael Sonnen's last pick, comes and beats him in the finale. So he's definitely a guy with a lot of drive and hope behind him, and he proved that tonight. I think the crowd went the craziest for him against Jake Ellenberger.
Could have been,
think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they did go a little bit wild, which we'll talk about later over Werdum, but maybe because he's from Brazilian descent. I mean, he still is fluent in Spanish, so obviously he can connect with the Mexican audience.
Right.
His walkout song was very, Mexican heavy. So yeah, but
he
I
was
agree
specifically
with you
representing the Mexicans. I think
when
I believe it was in his post-fight in the press conference afterwards where he mentioned that because Velasquez had fallen out of the main event, that he took it upon himself to represent
just
Mexico.
the whole Latin America in general, because it's not just Mexico that speaks Spanish. It's pretty much every Latin or Central and South America, with the exception of Brazil, which is the main language is Spanish.
Right.
So yeah, in some ways, even though I'm not Mexican, I am from South America. I was able to relate to Fabricio Werdum in the form of that Latin America market. Well,
let's just say that Fabricio Werdum is now the interim title.
Very much true.
And UFC heavyweight champion.
The fifth ever, I think they said. I think they were saying he's the fifth ever interim title holder. He now gets his shot against Cain Velasquez.
Assuming that Cain's
healthy and comes back on time. It's scheduled for January?
They were aiming for March, maybe toward the spring.
Okay.
I think January is a little too soon.
Sometime early next year,
especially with a lot of the fights, the main event of the January fights already being determined. I think they're aiming for March, April, hopefully.
Right.
They were talking about how if Cain happens to get hurt again, they'll drop the interim from the UFC heavyweight champion that Fabricio Werdum holds, and who knows? Maybe we might see him be
Fabricio Werdum officially as the undisputed champion,
UFC heavyweight champion. But who knows?
If they strip it from Cain, it would go to Werdum.
Because I mean, Cain Velasquez hasn't fought in over a year. So, I mean, here is a champion who, I mean, again, like you said, I mean, it's not his fault. He wants to fight. I mean, you can't help but, feel for the guy. He wants to fight. He wants to get in there and defend his belt. But, I mean, there's really
at the same time, the title
Right.
needs to be defended. And the train needs to keep going. The show must go on. And it's not unrealistic to keep that title moving. If you need to take it off of somebody and put it onto somebody who is active and is defending it as the top guy other than whoever is injured on the shelf, then that's how a sport works. That's how any business, any endeavor works.
Right. I mean, something happens to the president, goes to the vice president. It's the same thing.
It happened with Dominic Cruz.
Yeah,
I think they learned a lot from Dominic. I think they gave him as much benefit of the doubt and leeway as they could, and it ended up being over 2 years.
But hey, now he has a chance to come back on his rise and build himself again. The comeback is always a good story
Dominic
as well.
Cruz,
now he can essentially, win back a belt or a title that he never really lost to begin with. So kind of adds to the storyline as well. I mean, we'll see what happens with the whole Cain Velasquez thing. I mean, the Kane and Werdum was going to happen eventually. So who knows?
Yeah, I would have been upset to see Mark Hunt win. Not that he doesn't deserve it, and not that he's not a great fighter, but Fabricio Werdum has been on kind of a slow and long path to the title shot, and I think he really earned it. And I think if he were to lose that opportunity with one of those, crazy Mark Hunt overhand rights, it would just be sad to see. Yeah. Not that Mark wouldn't have deserved it as well, but I'm glad that Fabricio Werdum got it.
They asked Dana White at not the post-fight conference, but just post-fight interview, after the show happened. They were like, oh, well, here's a guy who lost to Junior Dos Santos, 3-4 years ago, got cut from the UFC,
right?
Goes to Strikeforce, fights a few times, submits probably what everybody thinks the greatest heavyweight of all time.
At that time, certainly was the greatest heavyweight.
Yeah, Fedor Emelianenko submits him. Not only submits him, but that's his first loss in what? That first really good loss.
In some ways, his only loss. The only other loss he had in Japan was
because of a cut.
Due to a cut. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So here's the guy. So all of a sudden, everybody knows who Fabricio Werdum is because he just submitted Fedor Emelianenko. That's the biggest deal in the world.
Right.
Then, of course, he comes back to the UFC, and he's just been on a tear since he came back. Submitting guys, knocking people out, Travis Brown,
and
Roy Nelson.
This is to say what the UFC, the world of the UFC and the lay of the land of MMA is now. In some ways, it was the same thing previously, but in shorter form and lesser opportunities. Now, somebody can have a so-so, moderate, or even bad run in the UFC if they get there, fall off, go somewhere, get let go by the company,
right?
Go on a tear, come back and impress. There are opportunities for a second and third shot. Fabricio Werdum is one of the biggest success stories of that. Somebody else who was on the tip of my tongue, Jamie Varner, to a certain extent, he came in and got a shot and impressed guys enough. I think even though it was a last-minute replacement, when he returned, impressed people enough in that match that they continued to give him a shot.
We were just talking about who Hector Lombard's next fight is, and it was against Josh Bergman, another guy who UFC got cut, did his thing everywhere else, and now look, he's back fighting one of the top welterweights in the world.
UFC is always, in my opinion, been an organization of second chances. They let guys kind of filter in. If they don't work out right away, they let them go, but they're always welcoming
just about anybody.
Them back.
We said a couple weeks ago, you've got to really screw up to be banned for life from the UFC.
Right.
There's two guys that come to mind that I think will never be back. One of them possibly could, but
who?
Well, Thiago Silva, I think, is probably gone for life.
Right.
Paul Daly is obviously signed elsewhere. But after he took those shots in his fight against Josh Koscheck a couple of years ago, after the end of the match, I believe it was right after the end of the third round, he took a couple swings at Koscheck, I believe, over the referee, just over the referee's shoulder. And that pretty much sealed his face.
Hopefully, I can think of one more, War Machine.
Yeah, well, I don't think he's going to be allowed anywhere outside of bars.
Yeah, not for a while at least.
Yeah, he's not going to be allowed into a free country or a free society, let alone the UFC.
Yes,
that's a fair third. Anyway, how do we get on that morbid topic? We're celebrating Mexico here, man.
On a happier note,
we're talking about Werdum from started from the top, went to the bottom, and now it just shows that.
And now we're here.
Pretty much, yeah.
He's Werdum is definitely not of that same company as those other three.
He's just one of those guys where just a message out there. Just because you got cut isn't the end of the world. Just because you lost. Now look at that. He lost. He's got 5 losses on his record. Now guess what? He's the UFC interim heavyweight champion.
Right.
It's not the end of the world just because you lose. So
of course not.
Keep in mind,
I was looking at, I think I said this a couple weeks ago, but I was looking at all of the champions' records just because they're posted right next to their title, and I think the most as of now the most losses a champion has is 2.
2, yeah.
Yeah. So Werdum
of the reigning champions now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So Werdum would
Velasquez
be the first
has
to have
one,
5.
Jones has one, Aldo has 1 or 2 maybe.
But at the same time, I think that definitely speaks to the caliber of champion that we have now, reigning throughout the UFC. But at the same time, you talk about guys like Randy Couture, who was, I believe, 3 or 5-time champion, 2 different weight classes for sure, 3 different championships, I believe, at least. And he had a record that had a lot of losses. I think it was like 17-9 or something.
Right.
But the guys that he lost to,
volumes.
Yeah, exactly. We're beasts. You know, I always will hearken back to the adage that it's better to lose a great fight than win a shitty one.
Absolutely. There's so many guys that I know in my circle of, you know, pro MMA fighters, not in the UFC, that, you know, just their chances of getting into the UFC fighting a great fight that they lost. I've heard stories, you know, over the years of people being like, oh, you know, I just talked to Dana White, you know, I just got signed with the UFC and I lost my last fight, but he loved how I performed.
Yeah.
He really looks at the performance and the heart and the value of the fight, not only the decision, because sometimes we know with MMA, crazy things happen.
And you know what? To add to this point, Mark Hunt is a great case in point right there. He does not have a huge MMA record.
Right.
If you look him up real quick, George. But he was the number 4 ranked guy in the top 10 in the UFC.
I mean, he came into the UFC with a 5-match losing streak,
look
and he
at
lost
that.
his first UFC fight.
Guys,
but then again, he won his next 4 by dramatic fashion, knockout of the nights, you know, fight of the nights.
Right.
I mean, and he just came off getting a title shot. So
to a certain extent, it was his rise to being number 4 was part of the lay of the land of the heavyweight division at the time. But that's the case no matter what, and for every fighter. So that's kind of a non-factor. You know, it's unfair to say, well, Mark Hunt is high only because all the other guys are, you know, injured or on the sidelines or whatever. Whatever, dude. You know, that's the lay of the land, and that's how it is. And if you work your way up, then you have earned your way up there.
I'm kind of curious if anybody has ever been fired or released by the UFC after having a fight of the night. I'm just kind of curious. Anybody who knows the answer, I can figure it out, but it's going to be time consuming. But
anybody else that knows it, hit us up on YouTube.
Has anybody
drop those
ever
comments.
Been released after having a fight of the night?
Directly after.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised.
Unless he gets like taken away any kind of drug related
something else,
overturned, something like that.
Right.
Yeah. Everything being clean, being let go from the UFC after having a fight of the night. If anybody knows the answer, I want to know, because that just shows you perform and you're going to get kept. Win or lose, you're going to get kept. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I look at guys like Diego Sanchez that will never be let go from the UFC. He doesn't have an undefeated record or, you know, amazing MMA on paper, but you watch the guy fight and you're like, oh my God, it's never a dull moment.
He has heart.
He has a lot of heart, and Dana White loves guys like that.
Yeah.
Let's start from the bottom of the main card. We had Edgar Garcia versus Hector Urbino. Hector Urbino won via guillotine in the first round. What do you guys think of that one?
All of these matches were fun and exciting. If I remember correctly, Garcia had a takedown early on. Hector Urbina escaped. There was a lot. It was like Choke City. This show. He got a Darce choke in, and then switched that to a guillotine choke, and was just looked a little bit like a crank. It was very. As Jim Ross would say, a modified guillotine. Not quite your traditional, conventional grip, but you know, it looked like he was cranking on the neck quite a bit. I remember it was a standing guillotine against the cage on Edgar Garcia. And, you know, Hector Urbina is a veteran from Ultimate Fighter Season 19. But to an extent, both these guys, it was a return to the UFC. Hector, I don't know that he ever had an official UFC match, not that I saw on his record, but was on the season and then had fought elsewhere and then came back. Edgar Garcia, he actually fought in the UFC way back at 107, UFC number 107. So for both these guys, it was a return and really fun match.
It was a competitive match as well. Hector Urbina has 11 first-round finishes, so he's definitely a finisher to say the least. Next, we have Augusto Dodger Montanano versus Chris Stump Heatherly. Heatherly had really good wrestling. He was really ambitious with his takedowns in the beginning. He went for a double leg, didn't get it, went for the single leg, finally took him down, and stayed on top of him for a little while. But it was TKO by Augusto in the first round with knees. Those knees were brutal.
And it wasn't even knees to the head. It was knees to the body.
It was knees to the body.
Yeah.
90% of the knees were to the body.
Which I think hurt more than the ones in the head.
Yeah.
'Cause that just takes the wind out of you.
And could crack your ribs.
Pretty much.
Your liver.
I'm a sucker for those, any kind of shots to the body, because everybody's so focused on trying to get to the head or knee to the head, but don't forget the body. The body can be just as damaging as pretty much any other body part.
Will stop your ass. You take too many of them, yeah.
I've never been stopped in sparring by a kick or anything to the head, a blow to the head. But I've been stopped multiple times by kicks to the liver. Like, it's always the body shots that kill me, or like that good like upper gut punch that goes right in your solar plex and and you can't breathe for like 5 minutes. Yeah, I'm all about body shots too, George. I don't know how much the adrenaline plays a factor to them, but if you hit hard enough, I'm sure the wind's going to get knocked out of you, and it's going to take a toll.
I think there must have been something like that happening with Heatherly, because Dodger, a.k.a. Augusto Montano.
The Mexican Dan Hardy.
Something like that with that hair,
With
right?
that crazy hair.
Yeah, so he's got this weird, bizarre red mohawk, just straight up fiery red, and a clean mohawk.
I call it a flow hawk.
A flow hawk.
Because it kind of just floats on like the top of his head.
Yeah.
It's not like spiked up or anything. It's just kind of hangs there.
He's definitely a visually memorable guy.
Yes.
But he lit up Heather Lee pretty badly against the cage and scored a takedown. Heather Lee got up, but then, the knees to the body, it was just incessant. And, people don't realize how much that shocks the system. When you take those body shots, it's like pulling out the spark plug kind of on a car, right?
Right.
And you can't move anymore. You're stopped, and which makes you open game. You're a sitting duck right there.
Right.
And I think I counted like 16 different knees
it was
going all over the place
several.
on Heatherly.
I think one of the things that happens when someone flurries you like that, not only punches, but knees is even worse. You're up against the cage. You don't have that like 5 seconds that he would need to recover to react back. And that's when the ref says, protect yourself, defend yourself. You have 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, depending on how hard the hits are coming, to show that you're fighting back. And if you don't, the ref's going to stop it.
Yeah. He wasn't out or anything, but he wasn't moving at all, and Big John had seen enough and just said,
he was covered up. He was like,
you
don't
were
touch me anymore.
Yeah.
Next on the card, we had Ricardo the Bully Llamas and Dennis the Menace Bermudez. Dennis the Menace. Is he a menace?
In the ring, in the cage, he is.
He is.
7-fight winning streak going into yesterday's fight against Ricardo Llamas, who just came off a title shot against Jose Aldo back in February.
Yep.
It was as far back as February?
I think so. It was Super Bowl.
Actually, I thought that was that seems sooner to me than what I would have expected, or more recent rather.
Yeah, he fought. Oops. He fought in June.
That's all right. Not a big deal.
Who did he fight in June, Horge?
Hakren Diaz.
Hakren Diaz, that's right.
It was a win by unanimous decision. Lamas looked really good. So here I have mixed feelings about this match.
Tell me.
On paper, I knew it was going to be great. It was action-packed. We got a nice first-round finish by Ricardo Lamas. Guillotine choke with the nasty, BJ Penn leg over trapping the arm.
That guillotine, though.
Yeah.
Guillotine, though. I
By
mean,
all
we could
means.
hashtag that and trend that on Twitter. That was beautiful.
Yes, it was.
Joe Rogan was ranting and raving about it, and
Both
these
guys looked really good. They showed up. Lamas definitely had the better night. Dropped Dennis with a jab. Jumped on the guillotine and got in a great
that sentence.
position.
He dropped Dennis with a what?
Dropped Dennis. Did I say drop?
No, you said it right.
Okay.
I just wanted
dropped
to hear
Dennis
it
with a jab.
Yeah.
And with a jab, yes.
Yes.
I thought he said he dropped him with a guillotine. That would have been stupid. He got that guillotine.
It's rare that you hit someone square on the chin with a jab and they just drop like that.
Unless they're off balance
Not
and they
saying
fall
it's
backwards.
impossible, but it's rare.
But, so here's the thing. I've watched these guys fight. And I know their records. I've seen them. I've seen plenty of time of them in the cage. I could not get myself built up to be excited about this new match unless because I knew who they were in the cage, I knew it would be a fun match. But on paper, to a casual fan, Ricardo Lamas and Dennis Bermudez, those names do not move the meter. These are guys that...
If you say it like that. Dennis the Menace Bermudez versus Ricardo the Bully Lamas.
They need to say it like that because these are two guys
saying.
who believe so much in their skills, and they have them, to be sure. You get so much you get so much of their performance, their skills in the cage, but you don't get that in the personality. These are not guys that I care about to know about or follow, other than that they may be top 10 guys in the division.
Are you saying like their athleticism?
I need more personality from these guys.
Not everybody can be a Conor McGregor. I'm sorry.
Maybe I am asking a little bit that they need to be. You know what? You do need to be to a certain extent. You don't got to sell it completely like him. George St. Pierre was very confident. He was not a cocky guy that talked a lot of crap about anybody.
You don't have to be cocky to stand out.
No, you don't need to be cocky to stand out. Exactly. But you do need to stand out, and it's something more than, yeah, I've been working on my skills. I'm in the best shape of my life, and I'm better than ever.
Don't you hate hearing that after a fight?
And this is going to be a great match. It should be really interesting. Bring a lot of challenges.
Can I just say, that's how awesome Conor McGregor is? The fact that he single-handedly has put so much interest in that one division that needed that extra oomph. You know,
well, it's just between him, whoever he's talking about, because he's talking about him, and the champion Jose Aldo.
No, but I'm saying that the fact that because before Conor McGregor, who else was there? Everyone else is kind of like, oh, whatever. But now McGregor here is like talking smack about everybody down the list.
I always like that division. I don't think that's necessarily true. I always thought that was an interesting division, but Conor McGregor,
personality-wise,
definitely put a spotlight on the division, and
he's got personality.
What he does is he triggers everyone else. He kind of puts like a little bomb in everyone else's pocket. So it's like once he says something, it lights everyone else's fuse. And then there they go. And they're talking back. And they're doing this.
And we got a little bit of it with Chad Mendez. But again, it was verbal counter-striking to Conor's verbal jabs.
Right.
You know?
Well, we counter-striking.
Yeah. And that's the same thing that we're getting, that we'll get with Ricardo Lamas, that we got with Dennis Bermudez regarding this match. It doesn't jive me.
See, I get it. I think
Cub Swanson, same thing.
I think for the fact that it was placed on the card, I think it was fine. Can it be a main event? Absolutely not.
Right.
But I think for third down the list, I think it went fine for what it was as far as the build-up goes.
Yeah.
It was fine.
To both guys' credit, the match delivered, but I was not at all. I didn't care at all about seeing the match going into it.
Let me just put it to you this way. We had how many MMA fights this weekend?
Shoot, a lot.
Yeah,
not just UFC.
I'm talking MMA.
2 other shows.
If we were to count all the matches we had this weekend, I would say we probably had 40?
10,
30 to 40.
Yeah.
Probably 30 to 40 matches, okay? Yeah. So for MMA fans, let's just say you're just a UFC fan like us, right? And you have all of this MMA to watch, all of this UFC to watch. You guys have to do exactly what Jay is saying. You have to make a name for yourself, or we don't know who the hell.
Tell them right there.
At my camera. We don't know who the hell you are. Because I bet you so many MMA fans were watching this card saying, who's that guy?
Who are these guys?
Who's this guy? Who's that guy? And it's because they had... Now, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt saying that this is the first Mexico card, so maybe some of the Mexican fighters
They did belong on the Mexican card,
Yes, as big of a name thus far, but here's your chance.
Yeah.
This was your first fight, you know what I'm saying? In your home country. Show your Mexican pride. Do something funny.
They all delivered.
Be yourself. They did.
They all delivered.
Physically, athleticism-wise,
they all
did.
came out to fight. Every single one of them, which is good.
Every match delivered in the cage.
Right. We're talking about outside
Have
the cage.
These guys necessarily delivered as personalities? No, not yet. And I don't begrudge that to the guys on the undercard who are just debuting with the UFC through this whole tough Latin American season. But I'm speaking specifically that, Lamas versus Bermudez for me was the one that stuck out the most as being blank milquetoast as a marquee match.
Right.
Fantastic in the cage, and I tip my hat to both those guys and their skills. But
tell Dennis to be the menace that he says he is.
Yeah, really, man. Go out and videotape yourself toilet papering some people's house, or
He said the only reason why he has a nickname is because his next door neighbor was Mr. Wilson.
Is that the case? Well, I think it probably has to do with the fact that it rhymes and the fact that there is a character as well.
If his name was Tom, it wouldn't be Tom the Menace.
Yeah.
His neighbor was Mr. Wilson.
Yeah. Brings it all back to bacon there.
Yeah.
There
you go, Horge.
Hey, Mr. Wilson.
With Ricardo, this does, I think, put him back into the mix. Well, he was ranked number 4.
Ranked number 4, yeah.
Yeah, and it keeps him up there in terms of title matches. But I think, or at least discussing it, you know. But what do we've got? We've got Jose having just defended. We've got
Conor. The next week's fight, Frankie Edgar versus Cub Swanson. That should be the #1 contender fight.
Yes,
it should.
Right.
Yeah. Especially if Swanson wins. Then we have Conor McGregor fighting Dennis Siver in January. So we'll see.
If something happens to one of those guys, then obviously Ricardo is probably the guy that you stick in there as a replacement for Boston. God forbid something happens to Conor, for the sake of the UFC, because Dennis Siver versus Ricardo Lamas in Boston. Again, it's the same problem there.
Oh boy!
You know,
let's hope that
they're
Conor
booking that Boston
healthy.
show. Yeah, Conor is the linchpin to that Boston show, to be sure.
And that's another thing. Like we were talking about earlier about champions being entertaining and keeping a name for themselves. You have so many people now coming for the belts. I mean, I remember watching UFC even like 4 or 5 years ago. It wasn't this much. There wasn't this many contenders. Now we get new guys off the Ultimate Fighter every year. Oh, they're the next top 10er. They're the next contender for the title. You know, Gilbert Burns, a guy we just saw fight, you know, my teammate Christos Yagos. Everyone's already saying, oh, this kid's going to be danger in this 155 weight class. We see guys coming out of the woodworks nowadays going for that title shot super early into their UFC, into their MMA careers. And I think that's another important key factor for those title holders is not only to keep in shape and, of course, make sure you're at the top of your game, but be entertaining.
Yeah.
Be the title holder. You know what I mean? You're not going to have it forever.
Yeah. Well, the guys that come off of Tough, the stars that come off of there, they do have to work their way up the ladder, and it's a nice segue into the next match. Yeah, right.
The next fight.
Kelvin Gastelum is a great case in point. Now cracking into the top 10. But they, Conor is a guy that's jumping over a lot of people, and there's debate, in terms of his whether he qualifies for a title match or not. One part of why he's getting that title match is because he's entertaining. And
who do we always say talked his way into a title match? Chael Sonnen?
Mr. Sonnen as well.
Yeah, I mean, it actually works, guys. You should try it.
And if you got the skills to pay the bills in the cage and you've got a personality, dude, there's your formula for success there.
Because I get it. Yes, it's a sport, but they also got to sell pay-per-views. They also got to do ratings.
It's not all personality. You got to be able to do it in the cage, and these guys can clearly.
It does go both ways because you can compare it to any other sport, but all those sports are free. You can watch NBA on NBC or ABC, whatever it's on. Football on baseball is on so much time, But with fighting, it's a little bit different. Now you got to sell out arenas. Now you can't go alone on. As much as I hate saying it, UFC I don't think is strong enough to just sell out arenas just on the name. Well, who's going to be on the main event?
Yeah,
who's
not anymore.
Be on the co-main event?
It used to.
Well, it depends. It depends
on
who's. What do you mean? What do you saying?
What do you mean? What do I mean?
I'm saying that UFC can't sell just by itself.
Right. Not anymore like it used to.
You gotta know what the main event is.
Like I'm gonna go to UFC
what the
on Friday.
Main event is.
Right.
So I think that's where you gotta come in and with the personality, with those press conferences. They have them for a reason. The press conferences, the weigh-ins, they televise them for a reason. So yeah. Can you blame Conor McGregor for being the way he is? No. Because look where he's at. Can you imagine if he didn't have a mouth like that?
I don't think anyone hates on him.
Yeah. I mean, just his division, but that's...
Well, besides the opponent, the contenders.
But as far as the
fans
go, I mean, that guy's, again, like I said it before, book a stadium in Ireland because that's where he should be fighting because you'll sell it out immediately.
Right. But also another good point is that he could also sell out here. I don't think you even have to take him to Ireland to sell out.
And Boston, definitely.
Yeah.
And Texas, maybe not so much.
That's the thing. You got to be careful. I mean, it's a few years ago when the UFC hit certain markets, they could sell out without worrying too much about it. And that was the case with Mexico. I don't know if they announced the actual event, the main event, at the same time they announced, but at any rate, it's a new market.
It was always going to be built around Cain Velasquez, though.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you go back to certain markets, when the UFC does, it doesn't necessarily sell out. It's not an automatic sellout like it was previously, but when it was a hotter ticket,
right?
Because there's a lot more events going on these days. To your point, George, a little bit earlier, also another important part, guys, of you fighters selling yourselves and delivering some kind of personality. And no, you don't have to be Chael, you don't have to be Conor. It doesn't have to just be about trash talk, but deliver that confidence. Humility is good. But why is it important that you deliver this personality? It's different. What George was saying about basketball or football, it's free. But also, those are team sports. There is a logo to get behind. There is a legacy to get behind. And there's a lot of different guys to cheer behind.
Right.
With you are your brand. You're the only guy that is going to sell yourself as I should rephrase this. Nobody's going to sell yourself as good as you can, all right? No one's going to have as much of a vested interest in you and your success as you. You are the single guy to write your own legacy. So do that. Give people something to rally behind. That's the biggest reason of all why you need to have some kind of personality besides simply saying, well, I'm going to let it all happen in the cage and let my actions and my victory speak for itself, and I'll rack up a bunch of wins, and therefore after that, they'll have to give me a title shot.
Yeah.
No, they won't, because if some other Irish shaved redhead, redheaded ginger with a good mouth and a memorable look is going to come by and talk over you and get that shot, there goes your 7-fight win streak.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, McGregor isn't the first Irish guy to be in the UFC.
No?
No.
So, I mean, that just goes to show that they're not just behind the guy. They're not just
It's not just the
rallying
accent.
behind him because of his Ireland descent.
No.
It's because of the guy.
It's because of who he
There's
is.
a reason why he's main eventing in Boston.
Right.
But, yeah. Kelvin Gastelum.
Kelvin Gastelum. Jake Ellenberger took on Kelvin Gastelum. Kelvin Gastelum won. He is 10-0.
I like Kelvin Gastelum a lot.
Okay,
Like,
here's a case in point. I don't mean to jump on the soapbox,
no.
but Kelvin Gastelum has an excellent story. He's undefeated. He's the little train that could. Last guy picked on the Season of Tough, as we were talking about.
Love it.
He defeated Uriah Hall in the finals, whom everyone picked as this next superstar. Uriah.
You know what? He doesn't have a nickname yet. He should be Kelvin the Underdog Gastelum.
Could be. Yeah.
He has always been the underdog. He's always underestimated, and he always proves out in the end. Like you said, the little engine that could. I think you said train. But
and when you hear him in interviews, he does deliver that confidence. He has no problem being the underdog.
Right.
He goes in there and says something that a lot of people might not believe he can deliver in the cage. Boom, he ends up doing so.
Absolutely.
And he's only 23 years old.
Yeah.
That's baby. He is a baby. And
he's almost young enough to date you.
But he was the co-main event of a UFC fight in Mexico City, and he's 23 years old. That's awesome.
Yeah. Super competitive challenge as well.
Jake Ellenberger's no joke. Yeah. Oh, look
Jinx.
at that. He's been training over at with GFC Diamond, Ronda Rousey's boxing coach, Edmund.
Yeah, Edmund Tarverdian.
Yep.
Jake has, you're saying?
Yes, Jake has. So at the beginning of the match, it was great footwork by both guys. It looked like a good boxing square off. But then a gorgeous suplex by Ellenberger, which resulted in the scramble that resulted to his loss.
It was so quick. You blink and you missed it. That's how quick Gastelum is.
It was such good movement, though. Like, he had his back, and Jake Ellenberger had Gastelum's back, and then Gastelum had Ellenberger's back, and then next thing you know, rear naked choke is over. Yeah.
Gastelum was on point here. His counterpunching looked great. His grappling, forget about it.
Forget about
it. To be able to be in that scenario, turn it around, and get the choke that fast, really impressive. And to say nothing negative, taking nothing away from Ellenberger. Gastelum was just on the money tonight.
It was his day.
Yeah,
it was his day. You saw
and
his
afterwards, his post fight interview, he was all heart, screaming his ass off, talking about loving Mexico.
I'm telling you, I think he got the biggest applaud of the evening. I mean, they went crazy when he was screaming at the end.
He might be one of those guys where you build a future Mexico card around.
Oh, I think definitely. I think he's the future of Mexican fighters. I think he's definitely, absolutely build a card around him next time.
Is he of? We should be clear. Is he of Mexican descent? Specifically,
so.
Is he? Okay.
So, yeah.
I'm not totally sure about that, but shoot, his Spanish sounded on point.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a guy. I like the fact that he's not rushing into things either, as far as his career. He's a guy who, and even in the post fight show, he was like, "Do you want a top 5 fighter? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I kind of want to kind of work my way up. I don't want to rush myself into things and be put against guys that maybe I don't think I'm ready for. So, I mean, I wouldn't say put him against, Condit or Matt Brown, but maybe against a Tarek Seferdine or, maybe a Damian Maia who would be excellent tests for him. So he's more about, let me test myself. And then if not, I'm still 23 years old and I got a lifetime ahead of myself,
Now, Jay, is that post-fight press conference, that post-fight speech, the nonchalant kind of attitude you hate, or is there something about Kelvin Gastelum in the way that he speaks that you like?
Well, we're talking two different moments here. The post-fight interview I thought was really exciting, heartfelt. I felt like he wore his heart on his sleeve, if you will.
Right, okay, so you had that for him.
The post-fight press conference, I think he was a little bit more subdued, showed up in a suit, and that kind of thing always impresses me. It, again, also makes you stand out from the pack when you dress up. And I'm a jeans and t-shirt kind of guy. I don't typically rock a collared shirt if I don't have
Just
to.
for you guys, after buzzers.
Yeah. But his post-fight comments were maybe a little less spectacular, if you will, in the press conference. But whatever. I mean, he showed emotion, to a huge extent there.
You don't like the Donald Cerrone Budweiser in hand, ripped jeans, and chewing tobacco?
I don't mind that as well, because Cerrone gives you his personality. You know who he is.
I love
There is a cowboy hat. There is a beer in his hand. He's going out like, I was going to say partying. Not partying. He's going out daredeviling by himself afterwards, He
is a party animal, but he also is a daredevil to the max. I think he went like skydiving before his last fight, like 3 days before the fight, and Dana White's like, what the hell are you doing? He hates that kind of stuff,
and the point is, you know who he is.
Right, we're talking about him right now.
And that's the driving home point. You don't have to copy somebody. You find what you are and you push that out to the max. It's really just like pro wrestling. From when the story or when the formula came out in the 90s between The Rock or Mick Foley, Stone Cold Steve Austin, they found one part of themselves, tapped into it, and then amplified it for the world to see. That's personality. That's getting over. That's the it factor.
Yeah, I think it's really just allowing the fans to relate to you, whether it's in a negative way, a positive way, an emotional way, like we saw in The Ultimate Fighter last week with Rose Namajunas. I mean, even her just opening up and telling us something about her, her dark past made us relate to her and like her. So likability comes from all different angles. The Ronda Rousey mean mugging. Ronda Rousey doesn't shit talk. She just has
she says what she believes.
She says what she thinks, and she has a bit of an attitude. And people either love her or hate her, but she's making a million, so she's doing something right.
Absolutely, it does come from all angles.
Are you talking about the main event or not yet?
Yeah,
I think we're there.
Right before you talk about the main event, just 60 seconds, 2 minutes.
Which is right now. Go.
Leslie Smith versus Jessica Ai.
Leslie Ear versus Jessica Ai.
The I beat the ear.
Oh,
one of the
Lanta.
goriest openings we've ever seen.
Listen, I like
sport.
gory. I can deal with bloody noses and busted lips and busted eyes and cuts on everywhere. But this...
Let's explain it.
I'll explain. Okay, so Jessica Evil Eye was definitely punishing Leslie on the feet. They had a good back and forth match going on, but Jessica Evil Eye hit Leslie Smith so hard with a right hand.
Leslie's got some cauliflower ear.
Which is funny because whenever you see a fighter with cauliflower ear, they take that as a badge of honor. That's good for them, whether they're a wrestler or a jiu-jitsu person. It's like, hey,
I think that's the same with Leslie too. I'm sure she.
I'm saying so. It's like,
I wish I had him.
Some people do. I talk to people, my teammates, all the time about it. We laugh. Like some people wear headgear, and we're like, "Oh, why are you wearing headgear, you bitch?" I want cauliflower ear, and then others are like me, for example. I'm like, I don't want it. I wouldn't mind it. It really doesn't matter. But Leslie Smith definitely wears it as a badge of honor. She's that type of girl.
All fighters pretty much do.
They do. Yeah. They do. It's part of their their training. It's how they get it. But it got sliced right in half at the top. So. The ear...
That left hook popped that bad boy open like...
If you watch the slow motion replay, you see the blood. It looks like a horror film, or like when you're walking through like a haunted house and they squirt the blood at you. You guys ever been in those ones? They're scary. And it squirts out. Oh, it's horrible.
In Americana, in American history, there is the reference to Old Faithful, the geyser.
Right.
That just shoots up water, right? This was Leslie Smith's ear is Old Faithful, the cauliflower geyser that shot up this giant spurt of blood.
Yeah.
And in the middle of a match, easily just the ugliest, wickedest thing that I've seen in a long time.
What was worse was when they went to their corner after round one and you got the close-up on the ear and you saw the bone. And then the pictures afterwards, you can see the ear, whatever's in your ear, I don't know, the cartilage, the bone, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It was peeled open, and the entire ear was coming off at the top. It was
hard. Mind you, after round one, you can see that close-up, but the fight kept going.
Oh, she didn't want to stop. She was like, no, don't stop it.
But the fight kept going. They went back into the fight, and then finally, thankfully, Herb Dean was like, you know what, no more.
The blood started coming out more in the second round.
Once they saw that the ear was in two pieces, it was like, this fight cannot continue.
Yeah.
Of course, Leslie Smith was upset, but rightfully so, but it's for her own best.
Really
Trust me, Leslie.
is. Yeah.
Trust me, it's for your own good.
This reminds me back to Kimbo Slice and James Thompson fought in Elite XC in, I want to say 2008, I believe.
Pretty much,
another James Thompson, Colossus, has another really big cauliflower.
Right.
And Kimbo threw, I believe, actually also another a right hook or right straight or something on Thompson, and his ear, it wasn't as bad as Leslie's, but he must have popped a blood vessel or something there because James' ear started bleeding as well.
Yeah.
That was a pretty nasty one. If it was just
the cauliflower popping, I may have been able to deal with it, but the fact that the ear ripped as well, it sent me over.
So you're okay if it was... Oh, if it popped and it was just blood.
If it was just like coming out of the cauliflower.
What if it was like the pus or the water? Or the
I would vomit all over your face.
That just earned us an explicit, I bet you.
Because you were sitting... You were sitting next to me, Jay, when I was watching. I would have went... Oh, thank you.
George is showing.
Thank you.
Hey, we've got to find some photos for this episode of UFC AfterBuzz anyway.
Yeah. And put the
we know exactly what we're bringing you guys.
Let's get to the main event before we run out of time here. Werdum versus Mark Hunt, obviously. Round one, Hunt had a knockdown. His famous, when he knocks the guy down, he kind of just stands there and waits for him to get back up. He rightfully so, he's not going to go to the ground with a guy like Werdum.
Probably the best, I'd say one of the best. I think the other guy would be Frank Mir, but one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners ever in the heavyweight division.
Yeah,
ever.
Definitely.
Yeah.
He's known for his guard. He has a wicked guard, even in the eyes of top jiu-jitsu black belts all over the country. That's what Joe Rogan was saying while he had Mark Hunt in his guard. It made me scared for a minute. I was like, it's all going to end here. It's all going to go bad.
I predicted second round submission by Fabricio. It was close, but...
You were close, but what happened?
He got knocked out instead.
Mark
Hunt got knocked out.
Werdum
flying knee
knocked Mark Hunt out with a flying knee. It's the apocalypse.
If something is going to knock out Mark Hunt or at least drop him,
it's got to be a knee.
It would be a flying knee.
Yeah.
It's not the first time that Mark has been finished by strikes, to be fair. But that said, the big story here, was Fabricio being really in tune with the altitude and the cardio, and frankly, probably being in better shape than Mark.
He was definitely in better shape. You could tell by the movement of the fight, just in the beginning of the first round there, that it seemed like he was more fluid. It seemed like he wasn't...
Yeah. I mean, I would have given that first round to Mark Hunt, though.
I did.
Yeah.
So Mark played the smart strategy of wanting to keep it striking. Fabricio's done this before. Fabricio will bait you into his guard. Did this with Fedor when he got him. He tried to do this with Alistair Overeem, who wasn't having anything to it. And then Overeem ended up winning the match, by rather lackluster one-sided decision.
Right.
I think it could, if things had gone wrong, it could have been the same kind of match between Hunt and Werdum, where Werdum just keeps falling and Hunt lets him back up and let's swing. That was the right strategy for Hunt, but unfortunately he got caught standing, and that happens. And Fabricio Werdum is the better man for the night because of it.
Yeah, I had to give the first round to Mark Hunt just because of that knockdown. I mean, he knocked him on his ass. He
got him flush with a couple good shots too, not just that right hook, but just.
Werdum had that awesome spinning back kick though, two of them.
Yeah.
One in round one and one in round two, I believe. So they definitely had their fair amount of trades, but because of that knockdown, I'd give it to Mark Hunt.
Yeah, and Hunt was not nearly as threatened when he was in the guard in the first round, in Werdum's guard. When Werdum got him to the ground, Hunt was in there. But Hunt was working. He was dropping some bombs, and he wasn't necessarily really threatened in the way that Werdum caught Fedor, for example, that long ago. Right. I thought the first round definitely was Hunt's. And second round was what it was.
I think if there's a tale to this match, if there's a story to this match, it's that Fabricio Werdum's striking over the past couple years has taken a turn. I mean, really, this is a guy that used to be a jiu-jitsu practitioner in MMA. Now he's an MMA fighter with amazing jiu-jitsu. He really is a guy that can finish people now. And kudos to his striking coach for making that turn, because he knocked out Mark Hunt.
I mean, even though his next fight is obviously against Cain Velasquez, I really want to see what he can do against Junior Dos Santos the second time around.
A rematch, yeah.
Pretty
it
much now that
would
he's
definitely
gotten
turn
a lot
out a
better.
lot different.
Pretty much. I mean, I agree. I mean, no disrespect to Junior Dos Santos, who is one of the best strikers, boxers in MMA.
Right.
But for Werdum, 2014 is a whole nother guy.
Right.
There's got a spark in that guy that we have not seen in a while. Not just from himself, but from
it'd be good. Two long, sturdy guys going at it, striking. Although I think it's safe to say JDS probably has the better boxing between the two of them.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, JDS is probably the best boxer in all of MMA heavyweight division. Maybe all of MMA to begin with.
Boxing against stand-up in MMA is like a different world now. It's like, he can have great boxing. That's awesome, but does that leave him open for takedowns? Does that leave him open for spinning back kicks?
Yeah, or apparently a flying knee.
That's why
I think him and Cain match up so well, because what's Cain's best attribute? His wrestling. What's Fabricio's best attribute? His jiu-jitsu, his ground game. So it's kind of like, do I want to take him down and keep him there? But then again, Fabricio's has his jiu-jitsu, so...
From my experience watching fights like that, they always say, okay, let's stay away from the ground. Let's both stand and
it becomes a standing match.
And it becomes a standing match, which, hey, I love.
But that's a good thing about Cain is he's a great stand-up guy. To outstrike Junior Dos Santos is impressive. So, again, Fabricio getting better from the last few years. I really hope they fight soon and nobody gets hurt.
Me too.
Or else we'd probably be talking about a whole other fight last night.
Right.
So who knows?
Just a few announcements. We have Holly Holm out on injury, which I'm super bummed about. She was really a highly anticipated female coming into the bantamweight division. She's a
high-level boxer.
World champ.
Yep, pretty impressive wins leading up to her UFC signing.
Right.
In MMA, that is.
So now we have Raquel Pennington with no opponent. We were talking about it earlier.
Which event was that again?
December 6th.
December 6th.
Oh, okay, the pay-per-view, 81.
I say either we said Rim Nakai or Betch Kohei.
Yeah, she's without a fight.
Maybe one
kind
of them
of a
could
step
take her
down
place.
for Betch Kohei.
That's what I said. She's on her 4-horsewoman rant. Let her keep going.
Yeah, especially they just announced too Miesha Tate versus
Sarah McMahon. I'm excited for that fight. I think Miesha Tate's gonna kick her ass, but
maybe.
We'll see.
That's one of those things where
it's takedown defense. It's takedown versus takedown defense.
But either whoever wins, it's like, well, where do you go next? You're not going to face Ronda because you're going to lose.
Yeah,
but
again,
I don't know. I kind of want to see a Ronda Miesha trilogy. I don't think right now is the time for it.
I'm sorry. Apologies to anybody in the to Miesha and anybody in the Miesha camp. That wasn't directed at Miesha, but. That's that harkens back to the Ken and Tito trilogy, of which there was very little point for the third one.
I disagree.
Other than a business decision to get over and expand that.
I disagree.
That match.
I disagree.
What is the reason?
I'll tell you. The first time Miesha and Ronda fought, yes, it was a clean slate. Ronda wiped her on the floor. The second time they fought, it went to the third round or the fourth round. The third round. And Miesha made the mistake, in my opinion, with trying to wrestle with Ronda Rousey, judo Olympian. But I think if Miesha would not be so stubborn next time around, the third time, and not wrestle with Ronda and maybe hit her in the face like she hates to happen. Yeah. Ronda hates getting hit in the face. We all know that. And I think if Miesha can strike with her a little bit, I think Ronda... I think it's the best chance.
The argument is third time's a charm.
Honestly. I honestly think that Miesha...
Tell that to Ronda. See how she goes for that one.
I'm not saying Miesha could beat her. I'm not saying Misha's better than her. But I am saying that she deserves that third chance because I think she would do better than anybody else right now that we've seen thus far.
Not over Kat Zingano.
No, I think Kat Zingano is going to get wiped by Ronda Rousey.
Ooh. I don't think so.
Kat Zingano is a slow starter. Ronda Rousey is one of the fastest starters in the sport, women and men included.
Yeah.
There's no way Kat Zingano is going to be able to deal with the pace that Ronda Rousey comes out with. No way, no how.
Unless she can.
No.
Unless she
never know.
Ronda down.
Nope.
We're going to make a bet on it.
Not going to happen.
Who wins next week? Frankie Edgar or Cub Swanson?
I like Frankie Edgar.
Well, yeah, I know you like him, but who's going to win?
He's from New Jersey.
Who's going to win, though? I do like Frankie Edgar.
Frankie Edgar.
I'm going with Frankie Edgar as well.
And I got to go with Cub Swanson.
Oh, you
Fair
asshole.
enough.
All right, guys, we're wrapping it up. Jay, where can we find you?
I am on your internets and social media. J10716. Mom, start the water for the pasta. I'll be home soon.
You stole that one from me.
Really?
I'm having spaghetti tonight, maybe.
You can find me at Hermoza, GHERMOZA, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on MySpace, on Vine, on Vimeo, on YouTube.
You are not on Vine.
You're not on MySpace.
I am on MySpace.
He is also on Ashley Madison.
And I'm on JDate, too.
And Match.com. Daria Berenato, you can find me at DariaB28 on all your social media. You can also find me at Daria, the Jersey Devil Berenato, which is my new Facebook page. Go and like it. See you guys later.
And watch her fight on YouTube. Go find it.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later!
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.